Hey there, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this very special and important conversation this afternoon. I want to first welcome everyone into our world for a minute. We are here on the Orange Couch, and we're here in the afternoon, like we're normally here in the evening, but we wanted to do something special. And so I want to thank you all for joining us. Um, this is about to be a really important conversation. So, one of the things that I know is true for me and for many folks is um, wanting to find that special one, wanting to find the person that you want to marry. And then the ultimate dream is that you do it, right? And the question becomes, what does that mean when it gets really hard? And so, on the 1 year anniversary of the passing of Michael Smith, we are sitting here with his husband, our brother Anthony Antoine. How you doing?
I am. Today is a good day. I asked a few friends and family to send me pictures wearing the color purple, and I didn't think I was going to be able to make it through his funeral, and that was one of the things that I asked during his funeral. I literally almost didn't do the funeral. That's how serious it was for me. My family, I leaned on my family and my friends, my daughter, my mom, my brother, and then his closest friends. And I asked people to send me pictures wearing purple. And that was the light and darkness that pulled me through. And so, all day to day, friends and family that love me have been sending me pictures in the color purple.
Oh,
And that is the light and darkness. It's just that, like, if I have a rough moment in today, I can go to those pictures or I'll receive them at the right time. And it'll, of course, make me cry, but also make me smile to know that I'm loved and supported. And so I feel very loved and supported today.
can we talk about the color purple
Yeah.
for a minute? What is the significance? Why purple?
Um, my husband's favorite artist was Prince, who, and Prince just was always a part of the soundtrack of our relationship, even before we got together. But so significant in the sense that Prince died at 57, just 2 years before my husband dies at 57. And so when Prince died, Michael and I were able to have a conversation about what it meant to die at such a young age and what it also meant to eventually we understood that he died without having his stuff in order.
Mm.
And so that literally was such a um, inspiration for us to have our stuff in order and for us to be able to have conversations, not even knowing that just 2 years later we would be living the same thing. So having a conversation about dying young and what that meant,
Mm.
and that I just know it was spiritual. And so in Color Purple, Royal Regal, Prince
Yeah.
is his favorite artist, and it was just his favorite color.
So I'm going to bring people into this conversation as well. Anthony and I are having this really intimate dialogue, but I will be watching closely if there are any comments, um, anything you want to share, love, sending love to Anthony. Please do that, and we will make sure that we shout those out here on the screen. So, um, I want to. So, how did you and Michael meet and decide to get married? Like, how did this happen?
That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
That's a whole long. So Michael and I, there's a story to tell, but I honor meeting Michael in 1999,
Hmm.
and so he,
Prince.
yes,
It's so funny.
no, that is funny. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, 20 years ago,
Mhm.
and when I first met him, it's one of those things. So he had met me a little bit before, connected to Ada Atlanta and the work that I was doing in what we call the Black Coffee discussion.
Okay.
And then he came to a deeper love discussion. And it is such a part of our foundation of our relationship. But honestly, I don't remember meeting him when he remembers meeting me. And then that next time we met, he saw me come in the room and he told his friend, he's like, it's him. he's here. And I'm now focused on him. And so it's one of those things where you ever been to dinner with like a group of people, but there's only one person in the room?
Absolutely.
And that's what that dinner was like. And I was with someone at the time. We were going through our little period, but only thing I could focus on was Michael. And Michael was the smartest man in the room. But some people are smart and they let you know that.
Yes.
He wasn't that dude. He was the quiet one in the room too, and he was like quietly off to the side. And then every once in a while he would drop this like mic of brilliance.
Right. He'd be like, wait a minute, that part.
Oh, okay. And so it just really like through the dinner he became like the only person I could see. And then that moves to like, how do we get married?
Yeah.
So many years later.
Before you do that, how you are a musician? How did that how did your relationship with Michael then influence how it related to your music? I'm curious.
How it related to a few things. The first ring that I wear around my neck, and if you look at pictures of me even from 20 years ago, this is a ring that Michael gave me. And I've worn it for 20 years. And at that time, what it meant for me is to support art in others as it's been supported in me. And that was because when Michael and I met and we first started talking, he was literally my biggest fan. So he loved my music, and he believed in what I was doing, and he produced projects with me. And here it is, a man that I just met, and he was willing to invest in my music. And of course he liked me, and I was young, and but that was what the first ring meant to me.
Got it.
Was to invest in others' art as it was invested in me. And that was our connection. We really connected on music. And it's interesting, I was watching Pose last night in crazy tears, that last episode. But part of why I was in tears is because Michael and I, when we met in '99, were both big fans of Billy Porter. And our love song is a song called Untitled by Billy Porter.
Yeah.
That is our song. That was our wedding song. You have to look it up. It's one of the most romantic songs. And so watching Pose last night, I was just remembering I was on the eve of, what I was going to do today. And I just was missing Michael, and I'm so happy that Billy Porter is in that position of like a lot more people know him. And I hope they go back and not just know him from Pose, but find his early albums and find the song Untitled, because it's the most beautiful love song. And that was one of the ways that Michael and I connected on music.
Wow. Okay, so you decided to get married.
So the thing about marriage, and I think we talked a little bit about this, for Michael and I, I'm an activist. So I wanted the right to marry, but it was never a thing I dreamed of, never anything I wanted. And so I remember when the federal law came through, and Michael and I used to joke. So at that time we were together. So there's 13 years of courtship. Then we get together, we're living together. And we used to joke, people are like, well, will you ever get married? Because, a few people are now getting married, and you see the pictures online. And we were like, well, we'll get married if it's allowed in Georgia.
So y'all put it on the way. Wait. So
and we were like, child, that'll be forever. Like, that won't ever happen. And that was our running joke.
Right.
And so I remember I was on one of my business trips. I worked for Emory University. I used to travel a lot. I was coming through to New York, and I was sitting in the airport, and the news came on that the federal law passed. And like now, not only, like, that means it's legal to get married in Georgia. Like, are you kidding me? In my lifetime? Because I didn't think I was going to see it.
Right.
So I was happy about the right. And I remember calling him, and at that time he was working, and I couldn't get through to him. And that frustration of not being able, because he's the person I wanted to share it with most. And I began to cry in the airport by myself. And what my tears were about and what I evaluated was, it was not only that we had fought for the right to marry. Dodie Muse had done a piece on, many years before about gay marriage. And so I was clear about my intention in wanting the right.
Mm-hmm.
But my tears were also about I'm in a relationship where this is the only person I would ever consider doing this with.
Ooh.
Like, wow. Like, I not only, we now have the right to marry, but I'm also in a relationship worthy of it.
Yes.
And that took me by surprise and caught me off guard. And that was when my immediate, my thoughts started focusing on that potential being there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here it is. I'm also with the person who's corporate, private, conservative in a lot of ways. He too.
And you're a public figure.
So we're very different in that way.
Right.
And something about that really worked. But for him too, he never thought about getting married. And I mentioned Prince. That literally was the three motivations of marriage for us. Prince being one of them was Prince dying without his stuff in order, and us being in a committed relationship, and that being so serious to us that if something happened to either one of us, we would want the other person to be taken care of.
It's reminds me of and I've talked about this before, kind of the idea of you find that person you feel responsible for.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Michael took the lead on that more than me. Michael felt responsible for me even 10 years before this.
Mm-hmm.
But once we began, being in a committed relationship, and then when you begin to talk about like retirement or looking forward in life and growing old together, and that's what our union was to us, then it's like, well, how do we make sure that we take care of each other in that?
Mm-hmm.
And here it is, his favorite artist dies at 57. It was unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
And what that said to us is that could be any of us. That could happen to anyone. And that motivates what I say now and how I live now. Live in love right now.
Mm-hmm.
This moment is what we have. Tomorrow is not promised. I lived it. Mm-hmm. From diagnosis to his passing was 8 months and a day. And we were coasting. Our life was happy. He had a cough, but we even joked the first time he went to the hospital. We were laughing and joking. I could show you a picture of him, and we were laughing and joking and taking pictures, and it wasn't serious to us because you couldn't tell me that life was going to write this devastating chapter for us. And so for me, what is really important is just we all got to live in love right now. This is the moment we have, and Michael was taken away from me at age 57 so quickly, and we couldn't see it coming. And so, for most of us, we won't live this devastating chapter, but for some of us, we will. Yeah. And that's why I sit here and tell my story and talk about him and honor him as in many ways as I can, because he's gone too soon, and that's going to happen for someone else.
Thank you so much. And one of the things I know leading into this, I feel like, and I'm so grateful for you because I feel like you're giving us the tools. Like, we know that these things can happen, but we also know, as I mentioned at the beginning, that we don't talk about it. And because we don't talk about it, we don't always have the ability to communicate with your partner and say, okay, I love you and you love me. Yes, we got that. Let's be ready.
Yeah. Not only do we not talk about it, but we don't live it. And there were ways in which I hoped to inspire Michael to live. He was as I said, more socially conservative, even financially conservative. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, look, I'm the dude that, like, once my Sky Miles get to enough to take a trip, I'm taking that trip. I don't save much money. Mm-hmm. I'm like, if there's money there, let's spend it. Let's get it in. And then he was like, slow down. And so not only do we not talk about it, but we also don't live it, meaning we live as if to say there's always going to be tomorrow. We put off our dreams. that thing that you want to do, or that, that dream, that goal, whatever it is, I tell people, go for that right now, because that's what we have. And I live in a way where, and especially, I was already kind of this person, but what I've learned in the last year, I live in a way that when I go, have no regrets. Like, I tell my friends all the time, if I go before you, say, Anthony got it in. I live my life, and I just won't look back and have any regrets. I'm not leaving much on the table. I'm going to live my life. And that was important to me.
So I hope you don't mind that I'm going to dive in to. So you go to the hospital. I imagine there was some time, but anyway, the diagnosis, Michael's diagnosis is shared. What was the first thing that went through your mind, and what was the conversation that you and him had?
Michael said very little once we got diagnosis. So I kind of knew something was coming. I came home on November 9th, 2017, and he was sitting on the edge of the couch. And his doctor, who he wasn't supposed to see until the next week, called him and said he has to come in the very next day. And so we knew something wasn't right. And spiritually, there are a lot of things that were going on then as well. But what I will say is there is a science and around empathy. And I could feel his symptoms. And so from November 10th to November 30th, when we got full diagnosis, I literally began to feel his symptoms. So when he was having his stomach tremors, I started feeling them. Laying next to him, I could feel pain, physical pain. And so I knew it wasn't going to be a good diagnosis. And we cried the first night, November 10th. I used to say that that was the only time that he cried. And Michael had a way of, he had a quiet resolve, very independent and strong. The second time I cried, Michael allowed me to cry and kind of laid, let me lay there. The third time I cried, Michael gave me a look like, this is not how we're going to do this.
So what?
This is not the way we're going to do this. And so I kind of knew, like, oh, I can't break down.
Right. Was that, do you feel like that was his way of like, I need you be building your strength?
A few things about that. Michael never wanted to see me cry and felt so accountable to it. And so it wasn't a selfish thing. It wasn't about him. It was more so that Michael, in so many ways, wanted to make sure that I was okay. And so me crying meant that I wasn't okay. And then it meant he had to dive in for me.
Got it.
And another part of that, and I say this about being caretaker for 8 months and a day, which is the thick of relationships. Like, being a caretaker is the hardest job. And I am still living the physical impact of that. But I know spiritually I was made to do this. I always felt like Michael was God chosen for me, and never felt like I was God chosen for him until diagnosis. And that was the ways in which our relationship got stronger and deeper and more meaningful. And I knew that I was meant to be by his side. And what I say about anyone that has to go through a major diagnosis is that let's hope you have the person by your side that can honor your wishes and not their own, or not the wishes of everyone else, because everyone else has, friends that love you and people that care. And it's not that they're ill intent there, but Michael was very special, very private, and had his way of how he wanted to do things. And I helped to facilitate that, even beyond his passing. Selling a house, taking care of, like, I had to do it all pretty much by myself, because I knew he wouldn't want someone going through his stuff.
Right.
And so there's a way in which I knew, like, no, you can't just pull people, anybody up in here and have, like, no, Michael will.
Right.
So it's a lot. It's a lot. But what I say about this period of diagnosis to his passing is that we all, Counter Narrative Project really helped me. And why I say Counter Narrative Project helped me, I don't know if you remember honoring Tony Daniels. And that wasn't too long after Michael passed. And I also say, let's hope that we all live a life where someone calls our name after we go. And Duncan Teague and I from Adobe, we were sitting in the back of the room. Tony Daniels was an Adobe Muse member. He died in 1999. Forgive me if I'm wrong on the year, 98, 99, in a car accident. So a sudden death. And here it was 20 years later, we're calling his name and honoring him. And Counter Narrative Project facilitated that. And so that was a part of my healing and grieving. Like, wow, like I can honor, yeah, sure, someone passes away, but then we can call their name, and let's hope that we live a life where it's worthy of you calling my name. You know what I mean? And Michael was definitely that dude where I tell people all the time, it's a love like I've never known. I still wear my wedding rings. The second ring around my neck is his wedding band. We switched bands, so I buried him in mine and I took his. And then this was the Christmas ring that I thought was a little bit too flashy when I got it, but now I love it because I want people to like see it and like, know. Where? You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I'm going to bring in, I saw that Maurice, hey Maurice, thank you so
much. My brother.
Yes.
My brother.
Maurice was just saying, hey brothers, I am here. Thank you so much for joining us. I have this question. So, being a caretaker, what did that look like for you day in and day out?
It was really hard. Being caretaker for Michael was maybe even easier than for most on some level at some point because Michael wanted to keep everything normal. And I'm like, there's this big elephant in the room with cancer. Dude, this isn't normal. And then he was so independent. And so that then also meant that there were times where I was like, even me quitting work and coming home to take care of him, he initially didn't want me to do that.
Okay.
Because he wanted things to stay normal. And he literally said to me, why would you take so much time off of work now? In 6 months, I may really need you. And he even said, you know, what if I'm dying in 6 months? And I said to him, did you hear what you just said? Like, if you're really dying in 6 months, I don't want to miss a minute.
Not 1 minute.
I don't want to miss a minute. And I now understand, I didn't understand it at the time we were having a conversation. He wanted to keep things normal because that was his way of dealing with his diagnosis. And so me staying home and being up under him was a reminder that one, he had cancer, or that like this independent person now is being taken care of. Like, dude, go somewhere. So my go somewhere sometimes or being caretaker was literally being downstairs sitting on the couch.
Right.
Like, okay, well, I may not be able to sit up under you, but I'm here. I'm still right downstairs.
Right.
But then
call me.
Right. But then there were times and ways in which cancer is such a relentless beast. From November 10th, first diagnosis, November 30th, full diagnosis of stage 4 extensive cancer in multiple parts of his body. And then from that, we were moved into chemo December 1st. And from December 1st to Christmas, we didn't think he was going to make it to Christmas. So there were ways in which cancer, the symptoms and what his particular diagnosis was, he began to need me in ways that he didn't even know was coming.
Yeah.
Neither one of us knew was coming. Yeah. And so I'm so glad that I was able to come home. I'm so glad that I was there. Yeah. And we had some good months in there. January, February, March of 2018. He began to get more strength. The chemo was working. I remember the first day I was downstairs and he came and said he was going to the coffee shop, which was right around the corner. And he took the keys and I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
What are you doing? Because I've been driving you around for the last month. Like, what? And and he's like, no, I need to do this for myself. And so now I feel like some parent, or like I was crushed. I may have called my mom. I remember like thinking, what, he's going to the coffee shop. And then
What did your mom say?
well, my mom is here now.
Yeah.
So supportive.
Mm-hmm.
But understood and she was there for both of us.
Yeah.
And he called back and said, I'm feeling pretty good about the coffee shop, so now I'm going to Whole Foods.
And you like, listen, see you doing too much.
Like, dude, I'm living a life where you were barely walking up and down the stairs, and now you're talking about driving to Whole Foods. Like, what are you doing? So it was very difficult. And the last 2 weeks, there are parts about the last 2 weeks I can't even talk about, out of respect for him and just how. But what I will say about it is, many people say that they want to die at home. If you had the choice and were faced with this, and we both were those people, he wanted to die at home, and I'm glad that I was able to give him that.
Yeah.
He passed away at home, but it's not something I would ever put any of my friends or family through. So I used to think that I wanted to die at home too. If you had some type of terminal illness or something, no, heck no. Take me to a facility, give me nurses, have a round the clock friends and family come check on me, but you have to be able to leave from that, because that last 2 weeks, I know I'm still living the impact of it. It is, yeah.
I'm going to bring in a comment because I see it, and then I have a question for you. So first of all, Marie said, "Hey Anthony, you're looking great, my brother. Can you talk about your spiritual connection with Michael and how, or if there's a connection to bring you closer to God and a higher power, and how does that play itself out in your current life?"
Um, Michael and I talked about this possibility of him passing, and he forced me into conversations because he really wanted to know. He literally, the first time he tried to do that, I was like, "Nah, dude, I can't do this, and all I want to do is fight, and we're going to beat this." And then the second time or the third time, he kind of slowed me down and said, "You said you would do whatever I needed in order to help take care of me. And what I need is to know that you're going to be okay if something happens to me." And so that meant that I had to have these kind of conversations. Michael talked about, he plotted for my survival. He plotted for me to live after him. It was nothing but a glimpse of God, in the way that Michael shifted. I think I mentioned Michael was very old school traditional values. Yes. When it came to relationships, possessive, not in a just old school values. Like you're mine, like you ain't, like we together, you ain't going nowhere. And then when it came to his diagnosis, he was so selfless, and so much so, like being able to talk about what life, if our chapter is ending, then I want your chapter to move forward, your next chapter, and I want you to find love, and I want you to be okay, and I want you to survive, and I need to know that you're going to survive. And that to me was nothing but God. That to me was nothing but God. And we also had conversations about, I used to joke with people that Sheila E. is my favorite artist. I used to joke with people that if I go before you, like I'm going to come back through, like Sheila E's songs are going to start playing. I love it. Or like, just these random things I'm going to play jokes on. And it was a joke because I don't know if I really believed in that. What I do know is that Michael and I talked about this life after death thing, and if there would be a way to communicate back. And neither of us took it seriously or believed in it so much so. What I know is that there is, I can't tell you what it is after death, but I do know that there is life. There's some version of Michael being able to communicate back to me. Not because I want to believe that, just because I definitively know it. Yeah. Like, that is nothing but spiritual and God to me. Michael oftentimes talks to me. He communicates with me through music all the time. It's so many things that I could tell you about that, where I don't even need to validate it or justify it, or I don't care what anyone else thinks, because I so solidly know that there is something after someone passes. And what I feel about Michael is that he got to wherever people go, whatever you believe, let's call that heaven or whatever that is. And he noticed that people were being able to communicate back. And my husband was the smartest one in the room, as I said. So he probably was like, I think there's a better way in which you could do this. Or like, okay, what did you say you did to communicate back? Okay. And then he figured out some better system or strategically planned, like, because this is what he did. And so then, for a moment in there, I got nothing. And then once I got the first sign, it was the floodgates in so many significant ways. And my brother Maurice, it is spiritual. It's nothing but God. What I call God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you learned most about yourself since Michael's passing?
I think what I've learned most about myself, one part of it is that I'm resilient and I'm a fighter. So I'm that dude that's like, even when something's going wrong, like one foot in front of the other, we got to keep fake it till you make it. Like, and so I've taken that to a whole nother degree. But then the other part about me that I've learned, and I'm like, really, God, did I need it in that way? Money changes a lot, but it doesn't fix everything. And those are the conversations that I had in 1999 with Michael versus who I am now. I was 29 then, and now 49. And there is no amount of money or no amount of, I'm really living a dream of, I'm retired at 49.
Yeah.
That was his gift to me. But I would give it all back to have him. I've worked 3 or 4 jobs to have him next to me. And that's another thing that I learned about life. So I was that dude that, like, if you could be broke at, with a negative balance in your account, like if you can find happiness being broke, me, like you can definitely find happiness having money and resources. There's no amount of money or resources that can take away grief, the kind of grief that I've lived in this last year. And Michael, for me, made the difference. He made the difference. He taught me how to love again. He is a man of his word and values. And so when you have that next to you, and then you deal with like knuckleheads and riffraff.
Child, you're like, I see you.
the thing I was most attractive to me about Michael, apart from his smile and just his commitment, he was a man of his word. And so I don't know a lie he ever told me in 20 years. Who can you say that about?
Right.
You can't say that about me. Like I probably, people lie he was just a man of his word. If there's a lie he ever told me, I don't know it. And that was so attractive to me. Yeah. And what I know in this last year is that I miss him, and I need that kind of stability around me.
So I'm going to bring in a comment, and then I have a couple more things. So Ebony just said, "Hey King, thank you so much."
My sis, Ebony.
Yes, sharing you and Michael's journey. Thank you so much for joining us, Ebony, and thank you to all of us. There are so many people watching right now, and all of this love. We know that you're here, and we can feel it coming through.
I feel the love.
Yes. You started a foundation.
I did.
Please tell us about the Michael Anthony.
So the Michael Anthony Foundation, of course, when you're faced with Michael passing at 57, he had some wishes, and we talked about this potential of starting a foundation many years before. There was something I wanted to work on, just us together, something that honored our union and our love, and that's why I called it the Michael Anthony Foundation. I was able to tell him the name. He didn't give me much feedback on the name. It was almost like he didn't really care about the name as much as what we're doing,
yes,
what the work was. I had mentioned to him on a flight 5 years before, 5 or so years before, about this idea of supporting first passports for inner city youth. And because he was a strategic planner, I'm living in my fantasy world of brainstorming.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, did you think about this? Did you think about this? Well, what about this? This part won't work. And by the end of the conversation, I was mad at him.
Right. You're like, I don't want to do none of it.
Right. I felt like maybe it was a stupid idea. Well, forgive me for brainstorming. Like, and so during diagnosis Christmas, through a therapist, what I realized is he had taken that idea and put it on one of his goals of legacy. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even know he remembered that conversation. And I remember being mad.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is, he remembered it. And not only did he remember it, he put it on his list talking about legacy. And he was like, well, our foundation, that's the work that we should do. But then also he told friends about it. So that when he passed, his friends came back to me and said, what about the foundation? What about that first passports idea? And so that's the main part of what I want to do with the foundation. There are 3 elements that we talked about explicitly. First passports, Michael was big on education. And so supporting youth and education, which we've done. And then the third part is concerts, which is my element. And the reason why I talk about even traveling internationally in a first passport, we wanted to plant the seeds of travel because travel was so important to us. And culturally, like being able to see how other people live gives you perspective on your own life.
Absolutely.
And so we were able to do that so much, and we want to be able to pour into young people, plant that seed to travel. But even concerts, I love concerts. Music is therapy for me. I travel the world for a concert, but we know that that's a luxury sometimes. Everyone, even hardworking people that are paying their bills and taking care of their kids and raising their family, sometimes to go to a concert is a luxury. And so what we want to be able to do through our foundation is to be able to treat people to concerts.
That's amazing.
Because it's therapy for me. I know how much I enjoy it. And I know that for some people that is a luxury. And so that's the 3 things that we do with the Michael Anthony Foundation. And I hit the ground running. We've already given out over $200,000 in educational scholarships, concerts, first passports. We supported Sheltering Arms. A big part of that was to a foundation that Michael sat on the board for early education.
Amazing.
Sheltering Arms. There was a portion that was given to Trevor Project, United Way, his alma maters, which is Duke and Georgia Tech. So we hit the ground running, and we still got more work to do.
You're the busiest retired person.
Yeah. So this is the thing about retirement. I say retired only because Michael never really embraced retired. He retired at 55, so he did get to, and retirement for him just meant he was going to work and do another job, because he was just a hard worker and worked. But I embrace saying that I'm retired because he didn't, because I thought it was such an amazing thing that he was able to retire at 55. Yeah. And I used to say, and he would always apologize for it, and I'm like, I'm not going to apologize for it. And retirement for me also means that you then get to do the work that you love. And so while I'm retired, that means retired from, like, you know, those jobs that like take away your spirit, it's not feeding your passion. And you know, thankfully I've lived a career in HIV research, HIV prevention that did feed my spirit along the way. But you know, you have those jobs where it's taken, or you know, where a job has run its course.
Yes. But you have to stay because
of life, and you got to pay these bills. And but again, whatever that is for, again, I just say it over and over: live and love right now. I had that mentality, but I really have it now. Yeah. When a diagnosis comes and devastates your life, 8 months and a day later, Michael was gone. I'm not leaving nothing on the table. I got to stay busy. Yes. Because that feeds my spirit and my sanity too, so my survival.
I want to bring in Marcus Stanley. Hey, Marcus. Love you, Anthony Antoine. Purple Heart.
I love you, Marcus.
Thank you so much. Book. You're
Yeah,
writing a book.
I feel like cancer is such one of the things when we got diagnosis on November 10th, we went to Piedmont Cancer Institution. And there was a point where I was behind Michael and I'm like, really, life? This is what is happening. And there's a way you're like, why my Michael? Why me? Why us? But then we were immediately sent to an oncologist, Dr. Jonas. And when we went into the room, it was this huge room where 40 people are sitting. And it's white, black, Asian, Hispanic, no kids because, kids would usually go to like a children's facility, but definitely young, old, even pregnant, even, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cancer is, it impacts so many, it doesn't discriminate. And so there's a way in which I know cancer is a universal story. Being a caretaker, there are many people who can identify with that. But then what's important for me is to talk about for us, as me being a black gay man. I don't think we talk about that part enough.
No.
We see the pictures on social media. We see, some people are getting married and those pictures are cute, but like what goes behind the scenes of
Yes.
that, and what happens to a marriage when real life kicks in and you have to fight for each other. And so for me, that's what the book is about. It's on the other side of cancer, a love story. And why I call it a love story, cancer kicked our ass. It devastated my life, but it did not win. It did not win. And through cancer, I used to not call our story a love story. We were so practical.
Why not? Why not?
I used to not call our story a love story because, do you know the Jagged Edge song, Let's Get Married?
Let's get married. Yes.
So
we ain't getting
no younger. We might as well do this. And Michael and I used to joke about that song. We would hear it on the radio.
Right.
And I'm like, do you want somebody coming? That ain't romantic
at all.
Well, that was our relationship. Like, we have been around each other so much.
Yeah.
It was like, you still here, I'm still here.
We still here together.
We still here together. We ain't getting no younger. So it was that.
Right.
Very practical. I joke about it, but it literally was more like that. It wasn't, it's not what you would see in some romance novel.
Right.
But through that came our love story. And so I think of it as a love story now, and cancer was a part of that journey. Like, once cancer hit, I dug in. I wasn't leaving his side. I fought for him. I fought that diagnosis. Life said he had to go. And so, and our love still survives. And so now I see it as a love story. And cancer was a part of that journey. It devastated us, but it did not win. Did not win. I'm still married.
Yes. So
I'm still married.
So, okay, last, to that point, I guess you just answered that question. You're still married.
I'm still married. Michael made me sit down and talk about even that part. We had to talk about like financial stuff, or like, what do you do with the house, or what do you do with this, or what do you do with that? So we had those kind of conversations. But then he also went into wanting me to find love again. Oh, it's like, how do you, like, dude, like, and I remember a point of literally saying to him, dude, you're killing me. Like, you're killing me to make me have this conversation. And again, his response was, I need to know you're going to be okay. And I also need to know that you understand that I will want you to be okay. Yeah. And that okayness, another chapter, means all aspects of it. What that means, what you're doing with your life, how you work, where you live, where you love, how you love. And he wanted me to understand that if I found love again, that marriage, that he was giving me the blessing. But I was clear. Like, dude, maybe I'll find love. And
right.
and I don't say that lightly, but love is all around me. I love my friends. I love you, Johnny. I love Counter Narrative Project. so I have friends and family that love me. So love is all around me. But there will never, ever be another marriage. Never, ever, ever, as long as I live. Never. I feel still married to him.
What is your plan for the rest of today?
My plan for the rest of the day is this was, I'm so thankful again that we were able to have this conversation. I feel it an important conversation. I hope we continue this dialogue online. I'm with my brother's coming in, my mom is here, my daughter, some of his family, his closest friends. We're going to his resting site and we're going to spend some time there and then we're all going to dinner together. There are ways Michael has 7 friends that he's known for over 30 years. But because he was so private, like they were compartmentalized.
Me and Michael are here.
Some people identify like that.
Yeah.
And
I
so
have
what?
to be better.
Right. So what I realized. One more thing.
Yeah. Please.
So one more thing. First, real quick about that. So we're all going to dinner. I bought most of them together for the 6-month anniversary. So it's like I'm learning because they knew him before I knew him. So I'm learning bits about him that I didn't even know. So that's healing for me. But then also they're getting to interact with each other and watching them. Like, it's amazing to me that y'all both have known them for 30 years, but y'all don't know each other.
Right.
Like, I don't understand that because my life is just a little bit more overlapping and different. One of the things that I also wanted to say about Michael's funeral, and one of the best bits of feedback I got from Michael's funeral was one of his closest friends reached back out to me and said, I don't want it to be at my funeral that my worlds collide. Like, I want people to have this love because Michael was so loved. And there were people that were just learning, oh, Michael was that important to you too. And he mentored you and he did this for you. And they didn't learn that until his funeral. And so what was said is that I don't want to say his name just because around some of the stuff, but he just mentioned that he wanted to ensure that he experienced that love and that overlap while he was alive. He didn't want it to happen at his funeral. And I hope that happens for all of us. All of us that want it.
Yes. And I think that is such a perfect place to wrap this conversation because, first of all, that just speaks to me. Being, and it's not on purpose, but I know that it was at my 40th birthday party 2 years ago that I walked into and they had a surprise party for me. My boyfriend at the time arranged it. It did such an amazing job, but it was weird because all of these people from these converging, like we're all in one room.
And you're like, and for you, you're probably,
what are all of y'all doing together?
Yeah.
But
and that probably was jarring.
It was very jarring. There's actually video of me walking into that room and you see me say, hey, like 4 times because I'm seeing all of these worlds collide. And what this reminds me is, well, there's several things. Live and love now.
Live and love now.
And bring our folks together. As often as
live and love now. For anyone going through anything difficult, especially like cancer, this is what gets me through. This is what I share with others who are going through it. When in darkness, look to the light. I literally cried every day for 8 months. Every day, every morning, every night. And there's a song by Elizabeth Withers, Simple Things. And I mention that song so much because it's a song that pulled me through. And when you look for like the flowers in bloom, or just the fact that your mom called to check on you, or that you're loved, or that people are sending me pictures in purple all day to day, that's the light. It's a rough day, a rough emotional day, but if you're going through anything tough, like it's going to be tough and life is going to do that sometimes, but when in darkness, look to the light.
Wonderful.
Look to the light.
One of the things, this is funny, this just came up for me. I'll ask you, one of the things I think we should do a playlist from you for Spotify.
I got one for you.
Okay. We'll make sure that we share that in the comments, everybody. Anthony,
It's love.
It's love. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who joined us. There's so many comments. I want to bring in a couple of the comments and then we're going to head out. So from Sharon, I know with couples, it is through the love of each other, of you, that you find within yourself a greater sense of who you are and who are you're meant to be for yourself, for your spouse, and for the world. Your sharing is a wonderful gift as well as your foundation. Thank you for the love shared
I love you,
with the
Sharon.
community. It is so needed. Love you always. Marcus said, "We love you too," with the purple hearts. And MK Duran said, "I so appreciate your joy, your pain, your resilience, and your example, Anthony. Thank you for sharing abundant love and light."
That's my heart.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
Of course, Tony.
We have our amazing producer and director, Alvin Agarat, back there. Thank you, Alvin. And we will see you all soon. Thank you for hanging out with us today.